Hey Vince, hope everything's well. I apologize for you having to see my dumb face again so soon. I decided that I would send you a video version of the presentation. So if you wanted to play this for your colleagues as opposed to just looking at the PDF, you now have the option. So let me run through this quickly for you, Ani. That's my big dumb cartoon face. Who am I? I'm Cliff Skelliter, human. In case you're confused by that, it happens to the best of us. I am the great grandson of John Skelliter, a residential school survivor, a resilient and proud Ojibwe Potawatomi man. I'm an entrepreneur with 20 years of experience. My work has been featured in People magazine, The Washington Post, NBC, CBC, CTV, and so on. Yes, a little bit of bragging there, but very proud of the work I've done. I'm also an art director that's worked on over a half dozen Indigenous art integrations with the Canadian federal government over the last few years, working on government projects. Has taught me a lot, and it's really what kind of inspired me building this software. I'm a proud Indigenous person. I'm also a person determined to build things that make the world a better place. The Indigenous Core, I am the founder of TIK, a 100% Indigenous owned company, and I intend for it to always be that way. And, whether I'm involved with it or not, I want to kind of make sure that, when my tenure here is done, it is run by the next generations, because I believe that this tool will really empower Indigenous people, Indigenous communities, and Indigenous sovereignty. The Indigenous core, this kind of almost gives you a little sneak peek at the technology itself there, a little bit of the UI on these phones. It's a user-friendly platform that serves people, Indigenous people, and non-Indigenous people working together. That's the way we succeed. Let's talk about the problem. There has been a failure by private non-Indigenous businesses to fulfill Indigenous employment quotas. This goes against the principles of equity, and fairness, and inclusivity. We want to fix that. Here's the solution. I believe the solution is technology. We as Indigenous people need to use technology to improve our lives and the lives of generations that come after us. It's not just a one project at a time thing, and it's not just traditional type projects. Con having control over the technology really does allow us to weave Indigenous ways of being and thinking into the technology that the world uses. How do we do that? Well, we have an eagle eye view. That's what this software allows you to do. And so you as the community would be the principal guardian, the main account, the First Nation. First Nation, your First Nation will have, multiple capital projects, whether they're projects where you're hiring vendors to come into your nation and build things, fix things, whatever it is, or different joint ventures or partnerships or collaborations, or collaborating with somebody on an RFP so that they could win a project. They're leveraging, um, your. They're leveraging your First Nation so that they could win a contract. And so we want to make sure that your First Nation gets the most out of it. But we also want to make sure that you have transparency so that you could see that they are actively participating in Indigenous inclusion and hiring practices for those projects. Um, so, we could kind of go through this, but essentially what, the software allows you to do is to basically see all of your people, all of their certifications, and you could kind of pull from the pool of people to kind of get them involved with projects. Also internally, you kind of have an idea, it gives you a good view of your team, but where the sauce is here with this software is that it allows you to have a good view of your vendors, right? What is their, what are they achieving? The hiring, of Indigenous people, and you have a view right through to that to see what percentage of Indigenous people are working, not just for the company, but also on a project. There could be multiple projects, and you want to make sure that on each of these projects, they're actually following through and being transparent. It forces transparency. So what the software really does, it mandates vendors hire from your community, right? Because you have access to your community members and they, you could see that they're hiring from your community. It also helps you identify internal talent within your community that can be used on projects, easily able to access who those people are and see if they're job ready. It identifies skill gaps. If we have a project coming up in a year or 2 years that requires somebody with this skill set, well, we have nobody in the system. We could see right away, none of our members. Now it creates the opportunity for skill development so they can be job ready. It validates that vendors are participating in Indigenous engagement. It minimizes friction and also generates the software itself generates revenue for community. So for so long, it has felt like no one has been looking out for us. Now it's time for us to look out for ourselves. Our software is fully responsive, ensuring optimal performance and usability on desktops, tablets, and smartphones. Once again, I know this may seem a little redundant, but it bears repeating. The software assists community with career opportunities, helps develop your workforce, enforces transparency with your partners, your vendors. You could understand who specifically is working on your territories. You could easily access important information about members. It does alleviate some HR pressures. It generates revenue, and it's a key piece in building sovereignty. So here's another thing we call our Vendor Connect Rebate, our VCR. So the cost for the service for your vendors, not for you, because for you, your community, you do not pay anything. But for your vendors, they pay $12.50 a month per user, right? We take $2.50 from that and we give it back to the community. So if there's 5,000 different, you have a dozen vendors, and between all of them, there's like 5,000 people working at these places. You'll get $2.50 per user, which equates to $12,500 per month. I think my math's on. You could double check that. But that goes directly to the community for as long as the community's vendors are on the system. So it's just that revenue is just coming into the community. And what we ask in return is that the community participates in the program, promotes it internally to members, and promotes it, enforces that vendors are using this system. This is kind of our line of sight system, right? And so I want to make sure, when your vendors use TIK, they're doing more than just ticking a checkbox, right? Okay, let me take a second to share the software with you. Okay, so here's your dashboard, kind of gives you any of your notifications in an overview. Your people, you could look at, all of the people, in your community. You could have them, you could search them here, and anybody internally, like on your team. If you want to take a look at them, you click in, gives you, some kind of base level information. You can see all their certificates. Safety, I really like because it gives you work limitations, safety incidences, also any recognitions, positive reinforcement we think is really important, timesheets, user settings, any forms that they may have under their profile. Now, let's talk about the Indigenous Index because, this is what we're here for. Now, basically when your vendor gets the invite into the system, their employees have to create their accounts. While they're creating their account, they're asked, you know, um, we're requesting on behalf of your employer, if you're willing to self-identify as Indigenous, it is your right to privacy in this regard. We are using this information to ensure Indigenous people are getting fair work opportunities. We are committed to truth and reconciliation. We do not request your status card. Do you identify as an Indigenous person of Turtle Island? And this is coming from a 100% Indigenous owned software, so it makes it easier and creates less friction for people sharing this information. So, yes, First Nations, you could choose your province, and then you could choose the band, right? So we're just going to skip that for now. I just wanted to give you an idea of how that worked. Here's your internal dashboard, but you could also see any of your vendors, right? And say, well, how many Indigenous people do they have working for them? What hours are they putting in? This is really important, right? Because oh, I've got 10 Indigenous people working and there's like 40 hours between all of them, right? So we want to kind of circumvent that. We could click into the company profile and then we could click in and kind of see their index as well. We could also look by project, which is great. I think is very helpful. Hold on one second. So that's by, and then yeah, kind of we could look at the different projects that are going on, and we could see, you know, if Indigenous people are being included on the different types of projects, which I think again, highly valuable to have that, as we call it, the eagle eye view. Now the software offers a bunch of other modules in it that we think are very important, very helpful, because this isn't, for your vendors, we don't want them to be in a position where it feels like, okay, this is just for transparency, because transparency, of course, is huge, but we also want them to kind of have major benefits like tracking their people's certificates, safety, timesheet. Again, your vendors, their vendors as well. And this is where you would invite your vendors. Also, we have something called custom forms. So absolutely any form that your company like would need, you could build out in minutes in here. So everything's consistent. And you could also make sure your vendors are using the same forms so that it's consistent all across the board. It's not chaos. It's easy to find all of your files. They're not scattered all over the place. What we really love about this compared to like a lot of the other ones that are out there is let's preview this form. Is like you could add all of these different like boxes, but we also have signing in here. So you don't have to take it out of the software to get signatures on projects. We think that's extremely valuable. Also, what's nice about them is you could email. So if somebody doesn't use this software, but you have to send them the form, you could email it to them, right? So that's like really key. It emails them over a PDF and they now have that form in a PDF file and they don't have to use this software. So that right there, my friends, is the gist of it. If you have any questions, let me know and look forward to talking to you guys more.